HOA find my gay brother for his pink door. My aunt and HOA lawyer canceled the rule that day. Part 1. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the envelope. It was taped to my brother's front door like a scarlet letter, bright white, bold font, stamped urgent in red block letters, and under that, in heavy caps, notice of non-compliance, color infraction 7C3. I pulled it down gently, trying not to wrinkle it, but the rage building in my chest didn't care about creases. Color infraction, I muttered. Seriously, my brother, Caleb, was inside, humming to himself as he arranged flowers in a thrifted ceramic vase. Sunlight streamed in through the bay window, catching the blush tones of his front door, freshly painted just days ago in a gorgeous, soft pink called Sunset Petal. The door glowed, the flowers sang, and someone hated that. Let me back up. My name is Riley Tran, and I'm the quiet one in the family. I work remotely in UX design, keep my head down, and moved in with my brother 2 months ago after a bad breakup. Caleb. He's the heartbeat of the block, openly gay, proudly flamboyant, and somehow still gentle to everyone, even those who don't deserve it. He bought this home last year after years of saving tips from bartending, moving boxes at a bookstore, and teaching kids art classes. His house is his soul in architecture: soft sage siding, hanging plants on hooks, fairy lights draped across the porch railing, and now his dream door. Pink, his favorite color since we were kids. He didn't cry when he saw the violation notice. He didn't say anything at all. He just handed it to me and sat down, quiet, still. I read the whole thing 3 times before I believed it. Dear resident, in accordance with Article 7C, 3 of the Summerhill HOA Property Uniformity Standards, all front doors must comply with the approved neutral palette: white, taupe, slate, navy, forest green. As your front door is currently painted an unauthorized shade pink, you are in violation of said policy. You have 7 days to repaint your door and submit photographic proof, or a $250 fine will be assessed. Thank you for keeping Summerhill beautiful. It was signed Karen Mallory, HOA Enforcement Chair. I knew it, Caleb finally said. Knew what? That it would bother someone. I sat beside him. She had no right. Caleb half laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. She has a clipboard, Riley. Around here, that's basically a badge. Karen Mallory had been circling our block like a hawk for weeks. She was in her late 50s, wedge haircut so sharp it could slice opinions, and always in a pastel vest with the words HOA Patrol printed across the back in Comic Sans. She had cornered Caleb 2 weeks earlier to scold him about his potted rosemary plant. Too big, too non-uniform. Caleb had smiled and offered her some. She declined with a grimace. That same week, our neighbor Javi was fined for his pride flag. Another woman was cited for a rainbow chalk drawing her daughter made, but pink a door. This wasn't policy. This was punishment. I texted our aunt, not just because we needed her, because she needed to hear this. Aunt Lynn is a partner at a major HOA and community law firm in San Francisco. She doesn't do drama, she undoes it. 3 hours later, her reply buzzed in, "Send me the letter," and a picture of the door. And Caleb, we're about to ruin someone's week. The next morning, Aunt Lynn showed up in a charcoal pantsuit with her hair in a battle braid and her laptop in a leather case. She didn't hug Caleb. She sat down and asked, "Do you want to fight or comply?" Caleb looked up. His voice was small but sure. "I want to be seen." She nodded once. "Then let's paint over their paperwork." While Caleb made tea, Aunt Lynn opened her laptop and got to work. Her fingers flew across the keys. "Summerhill HOA is technically valid," she said, "but their bylaws are a patchwork mess. No updates filed in 6 years, no formal ratification of enforcement authority, no public member list, which means no oversight." She pulled up Article 7C.3. Ah, here it is, the color clause. Voted in by a 3-person executive board in 2009. She turned the screen to us. Palette conformity ensures visual cohesion and community market value. Sounds like code for erasure. I muttered. Aunt Lynn didn't look up. It is. That afternoon, we went outside and stood by the door. Karen was across the street in her driveway, watering fake plants and pretending not to watch us. Aunt Lynn waved. Hi there, she called. I'm Lynn Tran, Caleb's aunt and his counsel. Karen blinked. Counsel, I specialize in HOA structural law. I just submitted an injunction to the county's residential code board requesting a freeze on enforcement until Summerhill's charter is brought into compliance with state transparency law. Karen sputtered. You can't just... I also requested a public hearing to reevaluate Article 7C3 under the new anti-discrimination housing statutes. You might have missed those. Karen's mouth opened, closed. Aunt Lynn smiled. Have a beautiful day. That night, Caleb painted the door again. Not a different color, the same pink. But this time, he added a soft brushstroke mural around the frame flowers, vines, tiny birds in flight, and in the corner, written in delicate cursive, this door opens for everyone. By the next morning, the story had spread. Someone posted a photo of the door online with the caption, HOA, find my neighbor for having a pink door. They don't know his aunt writes the HOA rule books. It went viral. Fast. By sunset, it was on the front page of Reddit. By the next day, 3 reporters called. The door became a symbol, not just of defiance, but of design, dignity, and identity. People from other neighborhoods came to take pictures with it. Kids started leaving painted rocks at the doorstep with hearts and flowers. One note read, "Thank you for being brave so I can be someday." Caleb kept that one in his wallet. But Karen, she doubled down. She issued a second violation notice, raised the fine to $500, claimed Caleb was inciting visual disruption and encouraging community discord. Aunt Lynn sent a single reply, "See you at the emergency hearing." Part 2. The line wrapped around the courthouse steps by 8:00. Caleb stood next to me, still blinking sleep from his eyes, hair perfectly imperfect, clutching a thermos of lavender tea. I offered him a protein bar. He waved it away. "I'm too nervous to eat," he said. Aunt Lynn, on the other hand, looked like she was walking into brunch. Hair braided down her back, crisp blouse, sunglasses that didn't need to be indoors, but somehow belonged anyway. She carried a manila folder labeled simply 7C Void. By 8:15 a.m., word had spread on social media. Pink Door Boy is going to court today. His aunt's a lawyer. It's about to get good. This is about more than a door. It's about who gets to be seen. The crowd wasn't just queer kids and artists. Veterans, parents, people with disability aids, grandmothers in floral prints, a few folks in HOA polos who looked increasingly unsure of their allegiance. Signs started appearing. Pink is not a problem. You can't find away identity. My door, my dignity. Karen showed up at 8:50 a.m. in a beige pantsuit and her signature scowl. She had a rolling briefcase and a man in a pinstripe suit trailing her, probably her attorney. She didn't look at us, not directly, but her eyes paused on Caleb, and something flickered. Not remorse, but fear. The hearing began promptly at 9:00 a.m. It wasn't a criminal trial. It was a formal arbitration overseen by the county's Community Regulatory Oversight Committee. 5 officials sat at a raised desk, 3 women, 2 men, all middle-aged, all taking this very seriously. The first to speak was the chairwoman. Today, we are hearing the matter of Summerhill HOA versus Caleb Tran regarding a violation under Article 7C.3, namely when the unauthorized display of a non-conforming door color and failure to comply with HOA corrective action. She paused. "Mr. Tran, you may speak or your legal counsel may proceed." Caleb opened his mouth, but Aunt Lynn was already standing. "Madam Chair," she said clearly, "we're not just here to argue color swatches." She approached the center podium with calm authority. "This is about selective enforcement, cultural erasure, and the abuse of pseudo-regulatory power by an unaccountable committee. She clicked her remote. A slide popped up. Summerhill HOA Bylaws. Article 7C3. Doors must be one of the following pre-approved colors. She scrolled. 5 colors. All dark, muted tones. No mention of how they were chosen. No record of the vote. No record of community input. Madam Chair, Lynn continued, this policy was passed in 2009 by a 3-person interim board with no ratification. Since then, it has been enforced disproportionately 3 times more against non-white residents, and specifically against symbols of LGBTQ expression. She clicked again. Side-by-side photos appeared. 1 Caleb's pink door, 2 a house 3 blocks over with a bright turquoise door, 3 another home with a yellow sunflower wreath shaped like a smiley face. No citations for these, she said. Only this one. She pointed back to Caleb's door. Karen's lawyer stood, adjusting his tie. Color compliance isn't about discrimination. It's about visual harmony. Pink is disruptive. Caleb's voice, soft but sharp, cut through the room. To whom the whole room turned. Caleb stood, hands trembling slightly. To whom is my pink door disruptive? The paint doesn't play music. It doesn't shout. It doesn't offend. Unless the offense is that someone like me chose it. He paused. I'm gay, and I love this door. It was the first time I gave my home a piece of myself. Then he looked directly at Karen. And you tried to erase that? Karen finally spoke. I followed the rule book, she said stiffly. This isn't personal. It's policy. Lynn raised a hand. Then why was Caleb cited in 2 days, while the other residents whose violations are more obvious and older never received notices? Karen froze. The chairwoman leaned in. Do you have documentation for selective enforcement? Karen blinked. It's not about that. The chairwoman wrote something down. Public comment followed, and this was where it changed. First came a neighbor, Miss Reed, elderly, soft-spoken. I never understood why he painted the door pink, she said. But then I saw people taking pictures and smiling, and I realized it made people feel safe, and that matters more than matching my shutters. Then a teenager stepped up. Elijah, trans, nervous but proud. I want to live in a world where I can have a blue door, or a flag, or just a porch where I don't feel like someone's watching me, waiting to find me for existing. And finally, a man in a suit from the county housing office. Upon review, Summerhill HOA is out of compliance with Title VII of the Residential Non-Discrimination Act. Their policies are enforceable only if uniformly applied and equitably designed. This clause, he pointed to 7C.3, fails both standards. After a recess, the decision came fast. We, the Oversight Committee, rule as follows. Article 7C.3 is suspended immediately pending revision. All fines issued under its authority in the last 5 years are voided. Caleb Tran is cleared of all violations. Summerhill HOA is ordered to submit a rewritten appearance policy with public input and diversity protections within 30 days. Karen gasped. The chairwoman added, and the committee strongly recommends Miss Mallory resign her enforcement role, effective immediately. When we stepped outside, the crowd erupted. Caleb covered his mouth. Then he cried. For the first time since the door went pink. Back home, the porch had 10 bouquets waiting. One from the neighbor with the turquoise door. A note attached. Thank you for painting what I didn't have the courage to. That evening, Aunt Lynn stayed for dinner. She poured wine, leaned back, and said, You know what they'll say next? What, that you were the problem? That it was just a color? Caleb smiled. Then I'll tell them I was never trying to be loud. He looked at his door, rosy, defiant, beautiful in the glow of dusk. I was trying to be mine. Part 3. It was strange how quiet the street felt once the fight was over. For the first time in months, there were no passive-aggressive flyers on doorsteps, no cryptic emails from Summerhill HOA enforcement, no Karen pacing the sidewalks in her pastel vest. She had resigned 2 days after the hearing. No statement, no apology, Just a car trunk full of clipboards and an early morning moving truck. But even in her silence, her legacy lingered tight-lipped neighbors who crossed the street rather than make eye contact with Caleb. Garden flags quietly removed, house numbers painted over, like shame was catching. But if Karen's reign had been built on silence, what came after it was built on sound. The first sound came from Caleb's wind chimes. They'd been in storage, he'd tucked them away after getting a warning about auditory clutter. Now he hung them back proudly brass, rainbow painted, shaped like small birds in flight. When the breeze picked up, the whole block heard it. That chime wasn't noise. It was proof he was still here. Then came the sounds of paint cans cracking open. Across the neighborhood, people began repainting their doors. Blue, yellow, teal. One house even went for lavender. Not because they all suddenly loved color, but because they wanted to make a point. A dozen residents formed the Front Porch Freedom Collective, an informal group that promised to support anyone fined unfairly or told to tone it down. Their slogan, "We match each other in respect, not in paint." Caleb's pink door wasn't just allowed now, it was protected. Under the new appearance policy drafted with public input and pushed by Aunt Lynn, residents could personalize doors, porches, and gardens as long as safety was not compromised. Discriminatory enforcement based on race, sexuality, religion, or expression strictly prohibited. Violators would be removed from the board. The story didn't stay local. CNN ran a feature, The Pink Door, that changed the rules. Caleb was invited onto a national morning show. He wore a pale rose blazer that matched the exact color of the door and answered every question with a quiet kind of strength. When asked what he wanted people to take away from his experience, he said, "You don't have to match the palette to belong. You just have to open the door for yourself. And sometimes, you have to leave it open so others can walk through too." That clip hit a nerve online, especially with queer youth. Social media was flooded with posts. "I showed this to my landlord. He apologized. I'm painting my dorm door pink today. I didn't know how to come out until I saw this." Hashtags exploded. "Rush or the pink door." "Let us be bright." "Aid paint for pride." A school in Vermont created a color without compliance art project where students painted miniature doors to represent identities they felt pressured to hide. A teacher messaged Caleb directly. One kid painted a door half black, half rainbow. He said it was the first time he felt like both parts of himself were allowed to be seen. Caleb printed that message and taped it inside the frame of his door behind a pane of clear plastic. "Permanent inspiration," he told me. Back in Summerhill, the new HOA board looked very different. A mom of three, a retired social worker, a young man who had been previously fined for holiday lights. Caleb himself was invited to join. He politely declined. "I'll paint, not police," he said, but he did help write the new community mission statement. This neighborhood is not a showroom. It is a home, and homes are as unique as the people inside them. Karen didn't disappear completely. 6 weeks after the hearing, a public audit found she had issued over $18,000 in unlawful citations, most of them against minority residents. The county ordered restitution. Karen appealed. She lost. She was fined, banned from serving on any HOA board in the state, and cited in a civil suit by a disabled veteran whose ramp she once tried to remove for curb appeal violations. We never saw her again, but her shadow no longer lived on the block. One Saturday morning, Caleb and I stood on the porch drinking coffee when a car pulled up. A man stepped out, mid-30s, holding a small white box. "Are you?" "Caleb Tran, I am. I'm Ethan. I used to live in the next neighborhood over. We met once. You might not remember. I'm sorry, it's okay. I wasn't myself then." He held out the box. Inside, a pink door knocker. "It was supposed to go on my place, but I couldn't. Not then. I saw what you did. I just wanted you to have it." Caleb blinked fast, then hugged him. Not long, just enough. The way two people do when one has found a piece of themselves they thought was lost. Later that week, Caleb installed it on the door, right beneath the number plaque. No fanfare. just a click of brass on wood. When I asked how he felt, he said, "It's the sound of welcome, not just for me, but for whoever needs it next." Part 4. The pink door never faded. Through sun and rain, wind and pollen storms, it stayed warm and welcoming like the heart of the house beating out into the world. People still stopped to take pictures. Sometimes families, sometimes couples, sometimes kids holding pride flags, tears in their eyes like they'd found a sanctuary they didn't know they needed. Caleb never minded. He bought a bench for the porch and left a tiny sign that read, "You're welcome to rest here." He didn't mean to become a symbol, but sometimes symbols are chosen by the people who need them most. And the pink door, it became more than paint. It became protest, peace, a promise. And with that, Caleb became something else too. It started with a single invitation. A neighborhood equity panel in Seattle wanted him to speak on authentic design and inclusive policy. He agreed. He talked about doorways not as decoration, but declaration. You shouldn't need a lawyer to choose your color. You shouldn't need permission to reflect who you are. More invitations followed, a podcast on suburban resistance, a feature in a lifestyle magazine, a brief interview in Architectural Digest titled "The Power of the Pink Door." That one made us laugh, but the story reached places even we couldn't have predicted. The American Bar Association invited Aunt Lynn to present a case study on HOA discrimination and selective enforcement. She opened with a photo of the pink door and said, "My nephew's door wasn't the problem. The rule book was, and no document should be more powerful than the dignity of the people it governs." That single line ended up in textbooks. Law professors called it a landmark moment in the conversation around identity, autonomy, and suburban governance. Then came the Color Access Act. A state legislator in California drafted it after hearing Caleb's story. It proposed restrictions on HOA design policies that discriminated against protected classes, mandatory public input on aesthetic guidelines, state oversight of enforcement bodies with a history of selective citation, explicit protections for LGBTQ+ expression through personal design choices. The bill passed unanimously. When the governor signed it, he did it in front of a replica of Caleb's door painted by local students, each one adding their own design around the frame. It now hangs in the state capitol. Caleb never let it go to his head. He still worked part-time at the art supply store, still kept rosemary on the steps, still left seed packets in the free library box out front. But the world had changed around him, and it wasn't done yet. That fall, a 13-year-old from Georgia named Anna sent Caleb a letter. She'd been suspended from school for painting her locker pink and decorating it with pride hearts. In her letter, she wrote, "I told the principal if a grown man could stand up for his pink door, then so could I. I got detention, but I didn't take them down." Caleb framed it, then wrote her back, "Good. Never let someone confuse their discomfort with your wrongness." The HOA next door tried to pass a uniform appearance amendment that banned non-neutral exterior colors. 10 residents showed up to protest with pink door stickers on their shirts. The measure failed. The HOA president resigned. Summerhill itself became a kind of landmark, not for tourists, but for those seeking proof that small fights mattered. A queer couple drove from Oregon just to knock on Caleb's door and say thank you. He made them tea. They stayed for 2 hours. Karen, we never saw her again, but we got a letter from her lawyer. A quiet, bland apology. It read, "Ms. Mallory regrets any distress caused. She acknowledges her actions were not in line with modern standards of equity." Caleb read it once, then burned it in a ceramic dish on the porch. "I forgive her," he said softly, "but I don't want her words to be the last ones on the record." So he wrote his own. "To every person who's been told to tone it down, to mute themselves for the sake of visual harmony, to repaint, repack, or retreat, you are not the disruption. You are the color in a world afraid of joy. Don't shrink, don't fade. Open the door wide. Make it pink if you want to, and let the light hit it just right." He posted it online with a picture of the door. No hashtags, just heart. It became the most shared post in LGBTQ plus spaces that week. A small protest, a big message. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the first violation, we threw a block party. No permits, no theme, just food, music, and open porches. We called it Paint Your Porch Day. Every house got a free paint swatch kit. Kids ran around with face paint. Caleb stood under a string of rainbow lights, smiling as people walked up just to thank him. At the end of the night, someone asked if he'd ever repaint the door. He laughed. Nope, this one's staying. As the music died down, he sat beside me on the steps and asked, "Do you think it was ever just about paint?" I shook my head. "It never is." He nodded, then said, "Good." Then I didn't fight for nothing. He didn't. He fought for everything. For beauty in the margins. For autonomy in uniform streets. For the right to decorate your doorway without being fined into shame. And in doing so, he taught us this, that the front door is more than just an entrance. It's a declaration. And sometimes, the color we choose is the loudest, kindest rebellion of all. The end.